Hello everyone, welcome to my review of Season 3, Episode 5 of Gotham, titled Anything for You. Before I go any further, I want to specify that there will be spoilers in this review. It's nice to have an episode that doesn't rely on a villain of the week type mode, where we actually get most of the episode concentrated on character plot lines. This episode starts off right away with this big mayoral parade down what I assume to be Main Street in Gotham. But of course, this celebration is short-lived because in the episode, while Penguin is dedicating a statue to his mother, there is an attack on the statue and on his memorial. The attack is by what is seemingly a new Red Hood gang. There was a Red Hood gang from before who were just bank robbers, but now it seems like they are more into specifically sabotaging the Penguin. But as we learn in the episode, this new Red Hood gang is headed by none other than Butch, because he feels very jealous of Edward Nygma and the Penguin's relationship with one another. He feels like he's being left out as the Penguin's right-hand man. So he tries to have this elaborate scheme where he's going to create this fake Red Hood gang, only to have them all killed by him to show that he is a great big hero. Of course, along the way, things get complicated when Edward Nygma becomes very suspicious of this Red Hood gang. And as we saw in this episode, Edward Nygma, despite being psychotic, still has a very good brain for figuring things out. He plays a lot of mind games, he knows a lot of twists and a lot of turns. He knows how to figure things out, which is probably kind of why he worked at the GCPD in the first place, which was very interesting to see him return to the GCPD in this episode, where he did not leave on the best of terms. He left by framing Jim for a murder he didn't commit. Speaking of Jim in the episode, we got to see more development between him and Valerie Vale when it came to their relationship. As I mentioned in another episode, I wasn't quite sure where this relationship was going. Was it going to be more serious or more casual? In this episode, we get to see that it is kind of casual, with a lot of apprehension, I believe, on both parts to make it more serious. But by the end of the episode, Jim takes one step further in terms of labeling the relationship. How long this relationship is going to last, I think remains to be seen, because despite what I'm seeing on screen, there is still a lingering emotional attachment between Lee Thompkins and Jim Gordon. I'm curious how that's going to play out later in the season. But as I said earlier, it was very refreshing to see an episode not cater to the villain of the week type formula, because that is kind of what Gotham has become now, which is fine for the show. It's fully embraced that format, and relatively it works well for it. But in this episode, we don't really get that conflict, other than with the Red Hood gang, which was something, I think, completely in the Penguin storyline, and really didn't have much crossover with the other storylines. Speaking of other storylines, we got some more of Bruce Wayne in this episode, specifically dealing with, I guess, his little adolescent feelings towards Selina Kyle, which we've all seen throughout the show, this back and forth that they have. And Bruce is an interesting character in the sense that he is not the Bruce Wayne a lot of people think of when they think of Bruce Wayne. He is a rather shy, timid, and rather boring child. So it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes for him to progress into the Bruce Wayne that we know. And I think in this episode, he's taken smaller steps towards that, but they are very slow, progressive steps towards that. We saw in this episode how he had to fight within himself to have the courage just to tell Selina Kyle the way he feels about her. There was a nice little sequence between him and Jim Gordon, kind of, I guess, going through some type of male bonding where they're just sitting there, they're having lunch, they're talking about their woman problems. We know how close Jim Gordon and the Batman will eventually become later on. So it's very interesting in this world how we're getting this established relationship early on between Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon. When it comes to Selina and Bruce, I'm curious where they're going to go with that further, because I think there's only so much they can do in the teenage romance realm when it comes to those two characters. I want to touch briefly on what is happening with Captain Barnes, because as we saw at the end of last episode, he was infected by Alice's blood. And he's going through certain changes. As we saw in the episode, he no longer needs his cane. I'm curious what is going to happen to him going forward. Is he going to mutate into a villain at some point, or mutate into something else? I know there were talks that Solomon Grundy is going to make an appearance. Is he going to morph into Solomon Grundy? I've heard some people also think that he may turn into Bane, but I think that's more far-fetched. But you never know with Gotham. There was another Ivy sighting in this episode. She interacted with Selina Kyle for a brief moment, and I'm curious if she's ever going to reveal herself as Ivy. But this thing with Ivy is still rather controversial, and still I'm not quite sure what their endgame is in doing this. Are they just waiting to unleash her as a villain later on in the season, and for her to play a much bigger role? But it really is not doing anything significant so far. We got to see a lot of stuff from the Penguin in this episode. We got to see him be betrayed by someone that he thought he could trust in Butch. Although I don't think Butch was really trying to betray him. He was trying to use betrayal as a tool to get even closer with him, which is kind of an interesting plan. Also, I don't really understand why Butch continued with the plan once Edward Nygma got involved. Battling wits with Edward Nygma is a very difficult thing, and I don't think Butch was really up to the task for that. At the end of the episode, Butch is rescued by Barbara and Abigail, because Butch and Abigail seem to have this kind of connection with one another because of what happened last season. So I'm interested in how they're going to hide him, because he obviously can't come out and do anything now because the Penguin's going to be hunting him down. Also, I know Gotham is a very crazy and weird town, but when you have the mayor threatening to murder people, it really goes to show how unpredictable and really down in the dumps this city must be, when the Penguin, who is a murdering kind of crazy person, is your mayor, and his buddy, who is the deputy mayor, is just as crazy and psychotic as him. And they have this interesting bromance going on, perhaps romance, I'm not quite sure, but they are getting very, very close, and it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes from here, because the Penguin is not really someone who trusts a lot of people. He's not someone who partners up with a lot of people well. He's always thinking of ways to betray people and get ahead of people and take advantage of people. So I'm not quite sure even if Edward Nygma's feelings towards the Penguin are in fact genuine, or if he's just doing this because he sees the Penguin as a powerful person in Gotham and he wants to attach himself to him in order to, gain power, of course. I mean, he went from being a inmate at Arkham to now being deputy mayor of Gotham. That's a huge jump. But as we know with Gotham, things are wild and crazy and really unpredictable, and that is very much part of the charm of the show. If there is a charm to the show, that's why I keep watching. I keep watching because I'm very curious how this crazy world is going to play out. And we got a small tease at the end of the episode that the Mad Hatter is still out and on the loose. Why they didn't really mention that they were actively hunting him down throughout the episode is kind of a mystery to me, but he's really someone who they really need to take high priority on, because as we see, he is massively psychotic. He is capable of doing really bad things. Overall, I have to say it was a good episode of Gotham. We got a lot of character things. It was refreshing to see them not stick to the villain of the week type tropes, but actually give us some decent progression when it comes to these characters. This has been my review of Season 3, Episode 5 of Gotham, titled Anything for You. If you like this video, please check out my other episode reviews for the other superhero television series.